The thermostat on the second floor reads 68 degrees. That was the first thing I noticed when I came home from a lesson. The heat was off, even though it was November, and the house felt like a refrigerator. I called William's cell and got his voicemail. I called again. Same thing. I walked into the living room, and that's where I saw it. The space where my mother's piano had stood was just a rectangle of lighter wood, outlined in dust. On the kitchen table was a receipt from Good Neighbor Foundation, the charity Diana ran, with a handwritten note on the back, pickup completed. Item 47. $200. My phone buzzed. It was Diana. She'd never texted me before. She didn't text me now either. She sent a photo. It was my piano, sitting in a storage room somewhere, with a price tag taped to the lid. The tag said donation item. Reserve. $200. I read it 3 times. $200. My mother paid $2,000 for that piano in 1972. I still had the receipt in my jewelry box. The photograph sat on my phone screen, and I couldn't look away from it. The piano had been moved into a storage room with concrete floors and fluorescent lighting. The bench was missing. My mother's bench, the one with the brass hinges, the one where she kept sheet music in stacks that dated back to the 1960s. They'd left the bench behind. I walked back to the living room and checked. The bench was still there, standing crooked in the corner like an abandoned dog. I called William again. Voicemail. I called a 3rd time and left a message. The piano is gone. Diana took it. She sold it for $200. I need you to call me back. I hung up and waited. Nothing. The house was quiet. Too quiet. The kind of quiet you get when the central heating goes off and the pipes start to contract in the walls, little clicks and groans that sound almost alive. I stood in the middle of the living room and looked at that rectangle of lighter wood on the floor. I could see the marks where the casters had dug into the hardwood over the years. For little indentations, like footprints. I thought about my mother sitting there, playing Hoagie Carmichael while my father stood behind her with his hand on her shoulder. I thought about how she always played The Nearness of You on their anniversary, never any other day, like she was saving it. Like it was holy. She died in 1994. I was 20. She had cancer, the kind that takes you fast once it decides to take you. She told me on a Tuesday and she was gone by Friday. The piano came to me. My father tried to argue. He said he wanted to keep it, said it was the last thing of hers, but she'd written it into her will. To Elena, my only daughter, so she can play it every Sunday like I did. He never forgave me for that. But he never said it out loud. He just smiled and handed over the keys and moved to Florida 2 months later. I sat on the bench. The bench was still warm. I don't know why I thought that. It had been cold in the house for hours, maybe days. But I put my hand on the wooden top and it felt like someone had just been sitting there. I felt the grain, worn smooth by 60 years of use. My mother's hands had worn it smooth. Then mine. Then my daughters, when they were small, and I'd lift them onto the bench and let them bang on the keys. I had a student coming in 40 minutes. Annie Chin, 10 years old, learning the Bach minuet. I'd been teaching Annie for 2 years. She had good hands, patient hands, not the kind that want to show off. She came every Saturday at 4, and I always made tea for her mother and let them sit in the living room while Annie practiced. The piano was central to the whole arrangement. Without it, I didn't know what I'd do. I pulled up my phone again and looked at the photo. The storage room had shelves in the background. I could see boxes labeled Gala decor and table linens. The Good Neighbor Foundation's annual gala was next Saturday. I knew that because William had mentioned it at dinner last week, casually, like he was discussing the weather. Diana's been working around the clock, he'd said, and I'd nodded and said, I'm sure she has. I didn't ask him how he knew Diana's schedule so intimately. I didn't have to. Diana. I'd met her once, officially. She came to a dinner party we hosted in 2021, the first year William started working with her. She was polished, blonde, the kind of woman who puts her hand on your husband's forearm when she laughs. I remember watching her in the kitchen. She was helping me plate the appetizers, which I hadn't asked her to do, and she kept touching my counter and my cabinets like she was already familiar with the layout. She asked where the wine opener was. She asked where I kept the napkins. She asked like she'd been in my kitchen before. I told myself I was being paranoid. I told myself she was just friendly. I told myself a lot of things. I couldn't sit on that bench anymore. I stood up and paced the living room. I called William again, and this time he picked up. Hello, where's the piano? A pause. I could hear traffic in the background. He was in his car. Elena, I was going to talk to you about that. When tonight? I was going to call you tonight. You mean you were going to talk to me after it was already gone? Listen. Diana said she needed some items for the gala auction. She asked if we had anything to donate. I mentioned the piano. She said she'd take care of it. You mentioned the piano, my mother's piano, Elena. It's been sitting there for 30 years. You play it once a week. It's not like you use it every day. I use it every Sunday. That's once a week. William. That piano was the only thing my mother left me. He sighed on the other end. I heard him. The full, heavy sigh of a man who is tired of being complained at. I'm sorry, Elena. I should have asked you first. I know I should have. But Diana was in a rush, and I thought it would be a nice gesture. A nice gesture. You gave away my mother's piano for $200 as a nice gesture. It's going to charity. That's the point. It's going to do good. I don't care if it's going to cure cancer. It's my piano. He said. He said it quietly. But he said it. I repeated. You're telling me I can't get it back. I'm telling you the auction is next Saturday. It's already logged in the system. You can bid on it if you want. I can give you some money to bid. I don't want your money. Then I don't know what you want from me. I pressed my palm against the wall. The paint was cold. I could feel the plaster through it, old and brittle, the same plaster that had been there when we bought the house in 1999. I want you to tell me why she was in my house. What, Diana? She was in my house today. She used your key. She told me she was going to pick it up. She didn't pick it up. She just took it. There wasn't even a note. There wasn't even a phone call. Elena, I'm not going to apologize for trying to do something generous. You're not going to apologize because you don't think you did anything wrong. Another pause. I could hear him breathing. I'll call you back later. I have a meeting. Don't bother. I hung up. I put the phone face down on the kitchen table. Then I walked back to the living room and looked at the empty space again. The dust had settled in a perfect rectangle. I could see the outline of the casters, the faint shadow of the lid, the curve where the fallboard had rested. I knelt down and ran my fingers through the dust. It was gray and fine, the kind of dust that comes from old wood and old felt and old strings. I smelled my fingers. They smelled like my mother's house. That night I got a text from a number I didn't have saved. It said, "Hi Elena, this is Diana. I hope you're not upset about the piano. I promise it's going to a good home. The proceeds from the auction are going to the children's literacy program. I know how much your mother loved to read. I saw her obituary online. She was a librarian, right? I just wanted to reach out and let you know it's being put to good use. Let me know if you want me to send you the auction listing. It's item number 47. I'll make sure it gets a good starting bid. Best, Diana." I read that text 8 times. The first time, I felt like I couldn't breathe. The second time, I felt my face get hot. The third time, I started to laugh. I don't know why, maybe because it was so transparent. She'd gone to the trouble of looking up my mother's obituary. She'd found out my mother was a librarian. She'd used that information like a weapon, like a key to unlock some emotional response. She wanted me to be upset. She wanted me to call her and get emotional, so she could tell William how hysterical I was, how unreasonable, how I couldn't let go of a piece of furniture. I didn't respond. I put the phone down and I made myself a cup of tea. I stood in the kitchen, waiting for the kettle to boil, and I looked at the receipt on the table. Good Neighbor Foundation. I hadn't heard of it before William started working with Diana. I looked it up on my phone. It had been founded 5 years ago. Diana was listed as the executive director. The board of directors included a real estate developer named William Hayes. That's how she'd done it. That's how they'd done it. William had given her money, our money, to start a charity that would let her throw parties for rich people and call herself a philanthropist. And I'd never known. I'd never asked. I'd never looked. I drank my tea standing up. When Annie arrived at 4, I opened the door and apologized and told her we couldn't have a lesson because the piano was gone. Her mother asked me what happened. I told her the piano was donated to a charity. I didn't say which one. I didn't say who had taken it. I just said we wouldn't be having lessons here anymore, at least for now. Annie was upset. I felt awful. She looked at the empty space in the living room and started to cry. Where did it go? She asked. To help children learn to read, I said. She didn't believe me. She knew it was wrong. 10 years old, and she already knew. After they left, I walked into my bedroom and opened the jewelry box on my dresser. I kept the receipt in a plastic sleeve at the bottom. It was yellowed and fragile, a carbon copy on cheap paper from a music store in downtown Pittsburgh, the kind of store that had been torn down in the 90s to make room for a parking garage. My mother's handwriting was on the back in pencil. Paid in full. June 3, 72. For my daughter's future. She wrote that before I was born. Before she knew she was having a daughter. She just knew she'd have one someday and that she'd want to play. I slid the receipt out of the sleeve and held it in my palm. $2,000. In 1972, that was more than she made in a year. She was a librarian. She saved for 2 years. I put the receipt back. I didn't know what I was going to do, but I knew I wasn't going to let it go. I pulled up my email and started typing to the Good Neighbor Foundation. I kept it simple. I said I was the owner of the piano donated on Thursday, and I wanted to discuss the possibility of reclaiming it before the auction. I said I understood it was scheduled to go to auction, but I was hoping to arrange a buyback or donation swap. I said I could provide documentation of ownership if necessary. I sent it. I didn't mention William. I didn't mention Diana. I just sent the email and waited. The next morning, I got a reply from the foundation's general inbox. It was a form letter, polite and evasive. They thanked me for my interest in the auction, but explained that all donations had been legally transferred to the foundation and could not be returned. They said the piano was now a registered donation item and had been cataloged as part of the Gala's live auction. They said I was welcome to attend and place a bid. I called my lawyer. His name was Marcus, and he'd handled my mother's estate when she died. I hadn't spoken to him in years, but his number was still in my contacts. I told him what happened. He listened. He took notes. He said, "Elena, I have to be honest with you. Under Pennsylvania law, if your husband donated that property and you didn't object at the time, the foundation likely has legal title. The fact that it was your mother's doesn't change the chain of custody. You could sue, but it would take months and it would cost more than the piano is worth." How much is it worth? Probably around $5,000, maybe more if it's been appraised. But you're not fighting over the value, are you? No. Then it's not a legal fight. It's a personal one. I thanked him and hung up. That evening, William came home. He didn't call first. He just walked in at 7, carrying a grocery bag, like he was making an effort. He said he'd bought steaks. He said he wanted to cook dinner and talk. I let him in. I let him put the steaks in the fridge. Then I sat down at the kitchen table and waited. He sat across from me. "I know you're angry," he said. "I would be too, if I were you. You've never been in my position. I'm trying to understand. William, you told her she could take my mother's piano. You didn't even call me. I didn't think you'd say no. I didn't get to say anything." He put his hands on the table. They were his hands, the same hands I'd held for 27 years. They looked older now. The knuckles were bigger, the veins more prominent. He was 55, but he looked younger when he was in a suit. In the kitchen, in the fluorescent light, he looked his age. "I made a mistake," he said. "I'm sorry." "You said that already." "I mean it. William, I don't care if you mean it. I care that you did it." He looked at his hands. "I don't know what else you want from me. I want you to get it back." "I can't. It's already registered." "Then you need to tell Diana to give it back." "Diana doesn't work for me. I'm a board member. I don't have the authority to pull an item from the auction." "William." "Elena." "William, I need you to hear me. That piano is the last thing I have from my mother. You knew that. You've always known that. And you gave it away for $200 like it was a piece of trash. I don't care about the charity. I don't care about the children. I care about the piano. So you need to fix this." He stared at me for a long time. I don't know what he was looking for, an opening, a weakness, a way to make this my fault. I could see him calculating, the way he always did when he was cornered. He was a deal maker. He looked for leverage. He didn't find any. I'll talk to her, he said. When? Tomorrow. Today. It's 8 o'clock at night. I don't care. He got up and walked into the living room. I heard him on the phone, his voice low and careful. He didn't use Diana's name. He used a code he thought I wouldn't recognize. I need to discuss the inventory with our director. But I recognized it. I recognized it because I'd been listening to his phone calls for 30 years, and I knew every shift in his voice. When he was lying, he went quiet. When he was ashamed, he went quiet. He was quiet now. He came back 10 minutes later. She said she can't pull it. It's been logged into the auction catalog. The catalog is going to print tomorrow. But she said she can make sure it gets a high starting bid so you can win it back. How high? 500. 500. She wants me to pay $500 for my own piano. It's a fair bid. It's not fair. It's my piano. He sat down again. Elena, I'm trying to help you. Help me by telling her I want it back. She won't give it back. You mean she won't give it back to you? He didn't answer. He just sat there, tired and small, like a man who'd run out of arguments. I stood up. I walked to the bedroom and closed the door. I didn't speak to him for 2 days. He slept on the couch. He cooked his own meals. He left for work early and came back late, and I heard him on the phone in the living room, whispering. I didn't ask who he was talking to. Friday afternoon, I was in the kitchen making coffee. My phone buzzed. Diana's name. I stared at it for 10 seconds. I didn't know what I expected, an apology maybe. Some excuse. Instead, it was another text. William asked me to push the starting bid up to $500. I'm going to approve it. I really do hope you can attend the gala. It's on Saturday at the Ritz. There will be wine and music, and I think you'll find the atmosphere quite pleasant. Maybe we could even have a conversation after, woman to woman. I'd like that. I put the phone down. Then I picked it up and typed back, I'll be there. She responded with a smiley face emoji. I didn't tell William the first was going. I didn't tell him I'd texted her. I just spent the next 24 hours getting ready. I washed my hair. I picked out a dress, black, simple, the kind of dress that looks like it costs more than it does. I practiced what I was going to say. Saturday night, I walked into the ballroom of the Ritz-Carlton at 7:15. The room was full of people in expensive clothes, holding champagne flutes, standing in clusters around round tables with white tablecloths. There was a small stage at the front and a podium with a microphone. And there, off to the side, on a raised platform near the bar, was my mother's piano. I walked straight to it. I didn't stop. I didn't look for William or Diana. I just walked past the donors and the volunteers and the auction paddles, and I sat down on the bench. The bench. They'd brought the bench. They'd brought it all. I opened the fallboard. The keys were still in tune. I don't know how they'd managed that. Maybe they'd hired a tuner. Maybe they'd just gotten lucky. It didn't matter. I put my fingers on the keys and I played the song from my parents' wedding. The Nearness of You. I played it the way my mother had played it, slow and warm, like a memory you're not ready to let go of. The room went quiet. I could feel people turning to look at me. A waitress set down her tray. The auctioneer stopped talking to a donor. I didn't stop playing. I kept going until the last chord hung in the air, and when I was done, I lifted my hands and set them on my knees. Someone clapped. Then someone else. Then a woman in a blue dress walked over. That was beautiful, she said. Are you the entertainment? No, I said. I'm the woman whose piano got stolen. The donors leaned in. They asked for the story. They asked who I was and where the piano had come from and why it was on the auction block. I told them. I told them my name was Elena Hayes. I told them my mother bought that piano in 1972 for $2,000 in cash because she wanted her future daughter to have something of her own. I told them my mother died when I was 20. I told them my husband's new wife sold it for $200 while I was teaching a violin lesson. I told them she said it was taking up space. I told them all of it. Standing there in front of strangers, with a champagne flute in my hand and my mother's piano behind me. William walked in halfway through. Diana was on his arm. They froze at the door. I didn't stop talking. The highest bidder raised her paddle. A woman I'd never met, gray hair, a doctor's calm, $10,000 for the piano. Then she walked up to me and handed me her card. "It's yours," she said. "I'm just the courier. Take it home." Diana smiled through gritted teeth. She was standing 10 feet away, hand clamped on William's arm. She was still smiling when I walked past her, still smiling when I said, "Thanks for the start," and still smiling when I walked out of the ballroom. The piano came back to my house on Monday. That was when I stopped holding back. I knew about the wedding. The beach wedding. I'd known for 3 months. I had the printed photo in my jewelry box, folded in half, slid underneath my mother's receipt. William in a white linen shirt and linen pants, barefoot on sand. Diana in a white dress that looked like it cost more than my car. They were holding hands. There was a man in a Hawaiian shirt standing between them, reading from a binder. Justice of the peace, I assumed. I'd called the number on the sign in the background. The Sand Castle Weddings. The woman who answered confirmed it. Mr. Hayes and Ms. Barrett, April 15th. They had the sunset package. I never said a word about it. I printed the photo. I put it in the box. I let William come home every night and pretend he still lived in my house. I let him sit across from me at dinner and talk about his meetings and his golf and his plans. I let him kiss me on the cheek goodnight. I waited. I waited because I wanted to know what he was going to do. I waited because I wanted to see if he would ever tell me the truth. I waited because I wanted to be sure. And by the time I was sure, by the time I saw the way he looked at her at the gala, the way he let her lead him around like a dog on a leash, the way he stood there and watched me tell my story and didn't say a single word, by then, I didn't need to wait anymore. He came home the night after the gala. The piano was already back. He stood in the living room and looked at it like he'd never seen it before. "I don't understand," he said. "How did you get it back? A woman bought it for me. A stranger, a doctor. $10,000. She just handed it over. $10,000, she said she liked my story." He sat down on the couch. He looked at his hands. "Elena, I don't know what to say." "Then don't say anything. Are you going to tell me what happened at the gala?" "I told everyone what happened. You were there." "I missed the beginning." "I told them you sold my mother's piano for $200. "Elena, I told them your girlfriend came into my house without my permission and took it." "She's not my—" I pulled the photo out of my jewelry box and handed it to him. He looked at it. His face went white, then red, then white again. "I can explain," he said. "Don't. Elena, let me explain. I've had 3 months to think about this, William. 3 months of knowing what you did. 3 months of watching you come home like nothing happened. You have nothing to say that I haven't already heard in my head 1,000 times." He put the photo down on the coffee table. "What are you going to do? You'll find out." I turned and walked into the kitchen. I didn't look back. I made myself a cup of tea and stood at the counter until I heard him leave. The front door closed. The lock clicked. And I thought, finally, I have the upper hand. I put his photo back in the jewelry box and I took out my mother's receipt instead. I held it in my palm and I thought about what she'd say if she could see me now. I think she'd say, "It's about time." I think she'd say, "You should have done this years ago." I think she'd say, "Don't let him win." I opened my laptop and started typing a letter to my lawyer. The letter to Marcus went out that night. I kept it simple, requested a consultation, laid out the facts, asked what my options were. I attached the photo of William and Diana on the beach. I attached a scan of my mother's receipt. I attached the email from Diana with the smiley face. I hit send at 11:15 and went to bed. I didn't sleep. I lay there in the dark and listened to the house settle. Pipes creaking, floorboards contracting, the wind pushing against the windows. The piano was back in the living room, but I couldn't hear it from the bedroom. I'd always been able to hear it before. On quiet nights, when the house was still, I could hear the wood expanding and contracting, the strings relaxing, the faint hum of a note that hadn't quite stopped vibrating. That night I heard nothing but silence, and I knew it was because the piano wasn't mine anymore. It had come back, but it had passed through someone else's hands. A stranger had bought it. A stranger had given it back. The piano and I had been separated, and now I had to earn it again. Marcus called me at 8 the next morning. Elena, I looked at everything you sent. I have some thoughts. I'm listening. The first thing I need to tell you is that you have a strong case for financial separation. Pennsylvania is an equitable distribution state, and the house is in your name. The deed has only your name on it. I checked the county records this morning. The house was a gift from my mother's estate. Exactly. Your mother left you the money for the down payment in 1999. The deed was filed as Elena M. Hayes, sole owner. William's name isn't on it. I sat down at the kitchen table. I didn't know that. I know. That's why you hired me. What about the business? William's business is a different matter. He started it during the marriage. There are marital assets tied up in it. You're entitled to a share of the value. But we can't touch it without filing for divorce, and the clock is ticking. Ticking adultery is a fault ground in Pennsylvania. But it's also a defense in some property disputes. If you file now, you can argue that his conduct, the affair, the bigamy, justifies an unequal division. But you need to do it before he does. He's not going to file. How do you know? Because he's not brave enough. He's never ended anything in his life. He just waits for things to end themselves. Marcus laughed. It was a dry laugh, the kind that came from decades of hearing the same story. You know him better than I do. But here's what I'd recommend: don't wait. File for divorce. File for a temporary support order. We can get you a hearing within 2 weeks. In the meantime, change the locks on the house. He doesn't live there anymore. He doesn't know that yet. He will. I thanked him and hung up. I sat at the kitchen table for a long time, looking at the receipt and the photo side by side. 2 pieces of paper. One represented the best thing my mother ever gave me. The other represented the worst thing my husband ever did. I put them both back in the jewelry box and I called a locksmith. He came at noon. He was a young guy named Derek with a tool belt and an easy manner. He asked if I'd lost my keys. I said no, I just needed the locks changed. He asked if I was sure. I said yes. He changed all 3 doors, front, back, garage, in 40 minutes. He handed me the new keys and I paid him cash. William showed up at 6. I heard his key turn in the lock, heard the metal catch, heard him try again. Then the doorbell. Then his voice through the wood. Elena, the lock isn't working. I opened the door. I didn't let him in. I stood in the doorway with my arms crossed. Did you change the locks? Yes. Without telling me, I'm telling you now. He tried to push past me. I stepped into the frame. Elena, this is my house. No, it's my house. Your name has never been on the deed. Since when? Since we bought it. My mother's money, my name. You never asked. You never looked. You just assumed. He stepped back. He looked at me like I was a stranger. What are you doing? I'm filing for divorce. I don't want a divorce. Too late. Elena. You can't just do this. I can. I am. He put his hand on the doorframe. I didn't marry Diana. It wasn't legal. It was just a ceremony. A promise. You promised me first. That was different. It was the same. You said, till death do us part. She didn't even wait for that. She just took your key and walked into my house. He opened his mouth. Closed it. Opened it again. I want to see my daughters. They're in college. Call them. This isn't how you treat a marriage. This isn't a marriage. This is a custody dispute. You just don't know it yet. I closed the door. He didn't knock again. I heard his footsteps on the porch, heard his car start in the driveway, heard him drive away. That night I called both my daughters. Claire was in Chicago, finishing her last year of law school. Emily was in Boston, teaching elementary school. I told them everything. I told them about the piano. I told them about the wedding. I told them I'd changed the locks and hired a lawyer. Claire asked if I was okay. I said I would be. Emily asked if she should come home. I said not yet. Mom, Claire said, you know he's not going to let this go. He doesn't have a choice. He has a lot of money. So do I. Since when? Since I stopped letting him keep it. I didn't tell them about the account I'd opened 2 years ago, the one William didn't know about. I'd started it the week after I found the text from Diana. Not because I planned to leave, I didn't, not then, but because I wanted something that was mine. I'd been transferring small amounts for 23 months, a few $100s every payday. It wasn't much, but it was enough to keep me going for a few months. Enough to pay Marcus. Enough to change the locks. I didn't tell William about it, either. I didn't tell him about the private investigator I'd hired the same week I opened the account. The investigator was a former cop named Ray. I found him in a directory. He was cheap and he was thorough. He took photographs of William and Diana at restaurants, at hotels, at the charity's offices. He documented the beach wedding. He documented the property transactions. William had bought a condo in Diana's name, a 2-bedroom in a new building near the river. He documented the joint accounts, the shared credit cards, the trips. Ray sent me the final report 3 months ago. I printed it and put it in the jewelry box, underneath the photo. I'd been carrying it around like a shield, waiting for the moment I'd need it. The gala was that moment. I didn't just tell the donors a story. I told them the truth. The whole truth. And I'd made sure some of them were journalists. The next week, the local paper ran a piece about the gala. Woman reclaims mother's piano in emotional auction. It didn't mention Diana by name. It didn't mention William. But it mentioned the Good Neighbor Foundation. It mentioned a mix-up involving a donated item. It mentioned a board member's wife who had played the piano for the crowd. Diana was furious. I knew that because she sent me an email at 2 in the morning on Tuesday. It was long and rambling, full of exclamation points. I didn't read the whole thing. I didn't have to. I saw enough. The only part one saved was the last line. It said, "You're going to regret this, Elena. I promise you that." I printed that email and added it to the jewelry box. That Wednesday, William came back. He didn't use the doorbell. He was waiting in the driveway when I got home from teaching. He was standing next to his car, wearing a suit, looking like he'd just come from a meeting. He watched me pull into the garage. He walked over and stood behind my car so I couldn't close the door. "We need to talk," he said. "I don't have anything to say to you." "Then just listen." I turned off the engine and got out. I stood on my side of the garage. He stayed on his. "I'm not going to fight you," he said. "That's a first. I'm serious. I'll give you the divorce. I'll give you a fair settlement. Just call off the rest." "What rest?" "You know what I mean. The stories. The reporters. The gala. That's not me. That's just people hearing the truth. Elena, you made me look like a monster. You made yourself look like a monster. I just told people what happened. I lost 2 clients this week. People read that article and they canceled their contracts. Maybe they should have." He stepped forward. I stepped back. "Diana wants to sue you for defamation. She can try. She's not going to try. She's going to sue the paper. She doesn't have a case." Everything I said was true. "Elena, please. I'm asking you. Just let this end. Let us end. Cleanly. Quietly." I looked at him for a long time. He was standing in the fluorescent light of the garage, pale and tired, the skin under his eyes dark with exhaustion. He'd been sleeping badly. I could see it. I could always see it. 27 years of watching him sleep, and I knew every line, every crease, every shift of his breathing. "I'll think about it," I said. "Thank you." "Don't thank me." I said, "I'll think about it. That doesn't mean I'll do what you want." "I know." He walked back to his car. He got in and drove away. I stood in the garage and watched the taillights disappear. I thought about what Marcus had told me. "You have a strong case." I thought about the jewelry box. I thought about the beach wedding. I thought about Diana's email. I thought about the 2 clients and the lost contracts and the look on William's face when he told me he'd been humiliated. Then I thought about the piano. I thought about my mother. I thought about the hours I'd spent playing that piano, the years I'd spent trying to make myself small so William could feel big. I thought about the way he'd looked at me at the gala, like I was a stranger. He'd looked at me with confusion, not anger. He'd looked at me like he didn't know who I was. And he didn't. He'd never known who I was. He'd just known what I did for him. I closed the garage door. I walked into the kitchen and poured myself a glass of wine. I sat down at the table and opened my laptop and started looking at listings. Not houses, I wasn't going anywhere. I looked at piano restoration services. I looked at tuners. I looked at the cost of getting a Steinway upright completely rebuilt. Then I looked at something else. I opened the Good Neighbor Foundation's latest tax filing. I found it easily enough. It was public record. I scrolled through the pages, looking for the names of the board members, the list of donors, the breakdown of expenses. I found Diana's salary. It was $92,000 a year. For a charity that raised $200,000 annually. I looked at the board members. There were 6 of them. William was listed as a director. His name was right there in black and white. I didn't know what I was looking for until I found it. There was a section about event expenses. The gala, it turned out, cost $43,000 to produce. The hotel ballroom, the food, the drinks, the flowers. $43,000. And the auction raised less than 30. I called Marcus the next morning. I need to know something, I said. Can I get a forensic accountant to look at the foundation's books? You can try. But you don't have standing. You're not a donor, you're not on the board. She sold my piano for $200. The auction item. The foundation sold a donated item and kept the proceeds. I have standing. Maybe. But what are you looking for? I don't know. Something that doesn't add up. Marcus was quiet for a moment. Elena, you need to be careful. You're not just fighting your husband. You're fighting a charity. There are optics to consider. I don't care about optics. You should. The article in the paper was sympathetic. The second article might not be. What second article? I'm just saying, be careful. You have a strong divorce case. Don't complicate it. I told him I understood. I hung up. I looked at Diana's email again. You're going to regret this. I thought about the way she'd smiled at the gala, the teeth-gritted smile that had never quite reached her eyes. I thought about the way she'd texted me like we were friends. I thought about the way she'd used my mother's obituary. Then I decided. I wasn't going to be careful. I wasn't going to be quiet. I was going to take everything William had, and then I was going to take everything Diana had built. And I was going to do it legally. I started with the piano. I found a restoration specialist in Harrisburg who could rebuild the action, replace the strings, refinish the cabinet. I scheduled an appointment for the following week. I arranged for movers to take the piano to Harrisburg and bring it back a month later. I paid for it out of the account William didn't know about. Then I called Ray. I told him I needed more. I needed everything he could find on the foundation. I needed financial records, donor lists, expense reports. I needed to know where the money came from and where it went. Elena, he said, that's not my usual scope. I'll pay you double. Fine. But it's going to take time. How much time? A month. Maybe 2. Take it. That was the day I changed everything. I sat in my kitchen with a glass of wine and a legal pad, and I started making a list. It was a list of everything I'd let go. The years I'd spent making excuses for him. The nights I'd spent lying awake wondering if I was enough. The times I'd looked in the mirror and seen a woman I didn't recognize. It was a long list. It took 2 pages. When I was done, I tore the list out of the pad and folded it and put it in the jewelry box. It joined the receipt, the photo, the email, the report. The box was getting heavy. I didn't mind. The divorce papers arrived on Friday. Marcus sent them electronically, and I printed them out at home. I read through every page. I signed where I needed to sign. Then I drove to the courthouse and filed them myself. The clerk asked me if I was sure. I said yes. She stamped the papers and gave me a copy and told me he'd be served by a sheriff. I walked out of the courthouse and stood in the parking lot. The sun was out. It was a cold, clear November day, and I could see my breath in the air. I could smell the leaves, the wet pavement, the exhaust from the cars passing on the road. I stood there for a long time, just breathing. I hadn't felt that light in years. He was served on Saturday morning. He called me at 9. I let it ring. At 9:15, he texted. What is this? I didn't respond. At 9:30, he called again. I picked up. Elena. William. The sheriff just showed up at my office. Good. Good, you're divorcing me. I'm filing for divorce, yes. You told me you'd think about it. I thought about it. And you decided to destroy me. I decided to save myself. They're 2 different things. Elena, we can work this out. No. We can't. It's too late. For you to be anything other than the man who gave away my mother's piano. He was quiet. I could hear him breathing, ragged, like he was trying to keep himself together. I loved you, he said. No. You used me. Elena, don't. Don't do that. Don't pretend you loved me. You didn't. You loved what I gave you. You loved the house and the children and the dinners and the someone who was waiting for you at night. You didn't love me. You didn't even see me. I'm sorry. You're sorry you got caught. You're not sorry you did it. Elena, please. William, I'm going to ask you one question, and I need you to answer me honestly. What did you love her? Did you love Diana? He didn't answer. It's a simple question. She made me feel alive. Are you still with her? Yes. Then that's your answer. You loved her. You chose her. I'm just the one who stayed too long. Elena, I don't want to lose the house. You already lost the house. You just didn't know it. What about the business? We'll talk about that through lawyers. Elena, please. Don't do this to me. You did it to yourself. You did it when you gave her my key. You did it when you let her take my piano. You did it when you went to that beach and pretended you weren't married. That wasn't real. It was real to her. It was real to me. That's all that matters. I hung up. I put the phone face down on the kitchen table and walked to the piano. It was leaving the next day, headed to Harrisburg. I sat down and played the opening bars of The Nearness of You. I didn't play the whole thing. Just the first few measures, enough to feel the keys under my fingers, enough to remember. Then I got up and started packing. I had a week before the restoration was done. I had 2 months before Ray's report came back. I had a lifetime of things to sort through. But I didn't feel tired. I felt something else. Something I hadn't felt in a long time. I felt like I was waking up. The piano left at 8 in the morning. 2 men in matching shirts, a truck with a lift gate. They wrapped it in moving blankets and strapped it to a dolly and rolled it out of my living room like it weighed nothing. I stood in the doorway and watched them load it. The same rectangle of lighter wood appeared again on the floor, the same dust, the same 4 indentations. I swept it clean before they even pulled away. The house felt different without it. Not empty exactly. More like a room that had been holding its breath and finally exhaled. I walked through the living room and the sound of my footsteps echoed off the walls. I'd never heard that before. The piano had always absorbed the noise, softened everything, made the house feel smaller and warmer. Without it, the room was just a room. I spent the morning cleaning. Not because I had to, but because I needed to do something with my hands. I washed the windows, the ones in the living room that faced the street. I scrubbed the baseboards. I took down the curtains and ran them through the wash. I opened the windows and let the cold air in. November air smells like dead leaves and wood smoke and the end of things. I stood by the open window and breathed it in and thought about how many Novembers I'd spent in this house. 27. Almost 3 decades of watching the leaves fall and the snow come and the grass turn green again. I'd been here longer than I'd been anywhere. Around noon, my phone buzzed. It was Emily. She'd been calling every day since I told her about the divorce, checking in, making sure I was still standing. She had my father's patience, her voice steady and measured. Mom, I'm coming home for Thanksgiving. I booked the flight. It's 3 weeks away. I know. I want to be there. Emily, I'm fine. I'm more than fine. I know you are. I just want to see you. Okay. I'll pick you up at the airport. Mom, is Dad going to be there? No. Did you tell him not to come? I told him he's not welcome. He got served the papers on Saturday. Mom, you actually did it. I actually did it. Good. That one word, good, sat in my chest and warmed me. She'd never said that before. She'd never taken sides. She'd always been the one who tried to keep the peace, the one who smoothed things over, the one who said, both of you, and I understand, and can't we all just try harder? But this time she said good. And she meant it. Claire called that night. She was more cautious, more analytical. She asked about the legal strategy, the timeline, the finances. She asked if I'd talked to a financial advisor. She asked if I'd thought about what I wanted to do with the house. She asked all the questions I'd been asking myself. I'm staying, I said. The house is mine. Dad's going to fight you on that. He can't. It's in my name. Mom, he is lawyers. Good lawyers. They'll find a way. They can try. You sound different. I feel different. Good different, good different. I hung up and poured a glass of wine and sat on the couch in the empty living room. The TV was off. The radio was off. I just sat there in the dark, listening to the house settle. It felt like a new house. It felt like mine. 3 days later, I got a letter from Diana's lawyer. It was a cease and desist. It said I had defamed her, slandered her, damaged her reputation and the reputation of the Good Neighbor Foundation. It said she was prepared to take legal action if I continued to make false and damaging statements about her. It gave me 10 days to respond. I took the letter to Marcus. He read it and laughed. Cease and desist, she's got no standing. You told the truth at the gala. You didn't name her. You didn't name the foundation. You just told your story. I named her in the emails. Emails are private correspondence. You didn't publish them. I published them to Ray. Ray's a private investigator. He's bound by confidentiality. What about the article? The article named the foundation, not Diana. She can't sue over that. She's not even named. So what do I do? Nothing. You ignore it. Or you send a letter back telling her to pound sand. Either way, she's bluffing. I sent the letter back. I told her to pound sand. I phrased it more politely, but that was the gist. William didn't call me after the divorce papers were served. He didn't text. He didn't show up at the house. I heard from Marcus that his lawyer had filed a response. He was contesting the property division, claiming the house was a marital asset despite the deed. Marcus said it was a delaying tactic, nothing more. He's buying time, Marcus said. He's trying to see if you'll fold. I won't fold. I didn't think you would. The week dragged on. I taught my students. I graded practice logs. I went to the grocery store. I walked the aisles and I saw people I knew, neighbors, old friends, the woman who worked at the deli counter. They looked at me differently now. They'd read the article. They'd heard the story. Some of them nodded when they saw me. Some of them smiled. Some of them asked if I was okay. I told them I was more than okay. That Saturday, I drove to Harrisburg to check on the piano. The restoration shop was in an old warehouse near the river. The owner was a man named Frank, 60-ish, with calloused hands and a quiet voice. He showed me the piano in pieces, the action out, the strings off, the cabinet sanded down to bare wood. It looked like a skeleton. It looked like something that had been taken apart and was waiting to be put back together. I found some things you should see, Frank said. He led me to a workbench. On it was the sheet music I'd left in the bench, my mother's old arrangements, yellowed and frayed. But there was something else. A folded piece of paper, stuck between the pages of a Chopin nocturne. I opened it. It was a letter. My mother's handwriting. To the woman who plays this piano after me, I hope you love it as much as I did. I've spent 30 years sitting at these keys. I've played through joy and sorrow and everything in between. I don't know who you'll be. I don't know if you'll be my daughter or a stranger or someone I've never met. But I know you'll be someone who loves music. Someone who understands that a piano is not just an instrument. It's a place to go when the rest of the world is too much. Take care of it. It will take care of you. With love, Margaret. Frank looked at me. I found that behind the foldboard. It was tucked in pretty tight. I almost missed it. I held the letter in my hands. My mother's handwriting. I'd seen it 1,000 times on birthday cards and grocery lists and sheet music. But this was different. This was a message she'd written for someone she'd never meet. She'd written it before she died. She'd hidden it in the piano. Can I have this? I asked. It's yours. I folded it carefully and put it in my bag. I didn't cry. I thought I might, but I didn't. I just held it and felt the weight of it, the thin paper, the faded ink. She'd written it for me. She didn't know it, but she'd written it for me. I told Frank to take his time with the restoration. I told him I wanted it done right. He said he'd call me when it was ready. That night, I sat in the living room and read the letter again. I read it out loud, just to hear the words. My mother's voice was in them. I could hear her the way I'd always heard her, slightly impatient, slightly amused, always warm. Take care of it. It will take care of you. She'd written that. She'd believed that. She'd been right. I put the letter in the jewelry box. It joined the others. The box was getting full. I didn't mind. The next week, I got a call from Ray. He'd found something. Elena, I need to show you something in person. Can you meet me tomorrow? Where? My office. 10 o'clock. I showed up at his office at 10. It was a small space in a strip mall, the kind of place that smelled like stale coffee and old paper. Ray was at his desk, surrounded by folders and printouts. He looked tired. Sit down, he said. You're going to want to sit down. Saturday, I found what you're looking for. The foundation's finances. There are discrepancies. Big ones. He slid a folder across the desk. I opened it. There were spreadsheets, bank statements, receipts. The numbers didn't match. The foundation had been reporting one set of expenses to the IRS and another set to its donors. The Gala, for instance, cost $43,000 to produce, but they'd listed it as $65,000 on the donor materials. The extra $22,000 had been funneled through a consulting firm that didn't exist. That's fraud, I said. Could be. But proving it would take more than what I have here. You'd need a forensic accountant. You'd need subpoenas. You'd need time. How much time? A few months. Maybe more. And it would cost you. How much? 15, 20,000. Maybe more if it goes to court. I looked at the numbers again. The foundation had been operating for 5 years. 5 years of filing false returns. 5 years of donors being lied to. 5 years of Diana taking a salary that should have gone to the children's literacy program. How involved is William? I asked. He's on the board. He's listed as a director. But I don't have evidence he knew about the fraud. He might have. He might not have. That's the hard part. Can you find out? I can try. I closed the folder. I thought about it. I thought about the beach wedding and the condo and the way Diana had smiled at the gala. I thought about the photo in my jewelry box and the letter from my mother and the empty living room. I thought about William standing in the garage, pale and tired, asking me to let it end quietly. I'll think about it, I said. Ray nodded. Take your time. But don't take too long. If she finds out someone's been digging, she'll start covering her tracks. I left his office and sat in my car in the parking lot. I didn't turn on the engine. I just sat there, staring at the folder on the passenger seat. $15,000. A few months. The possibility that William was involved. The possibility that he wasn't. I didn't know what I was going to do. But I knew what I wasn't going to do. I wasn't going to let it go. That afternoon, I called Marcus. I told him about Ray's findings. I told him about the fraud. I told him I wanted to pursue it. Elena, if you do this, you're declaring war. Not just on Diana. On the foundation. On the donors. On everyone who's ever given money to that charity. It's going to be a mess. I know. Are you prepared for that? I've been prepared for a long time. I just didn't know it. Marcus was quiet for a moment. Then he said, I'll make some calls. I'll find you a forensic accountant. Thank you. Elena. Yes, be careful. You're playing with fire. I know. That's why I'm doing it. I hung up and drove home. The house was empty. The living room was empty. But the piano was coming back. The piano was coming back better than before. And when it came back, I'd sit down and I'd play my mother's song and I'd think about what she'd written. Take care of it. It will take care of you. I was taking care of it. I was taking care of everything. The next morning, I got a text from Diana. It was the first time she'd contacted me since the gala. It just said, we need to talk. Not about the divorce. About the foundation. I think you'll want to hear what I have to say. I stared at the screen. I didn't know what to make of it. She wanted to talk. She wanted to talk about the foundation. She knew about Ray. She had to know. She was trying to get ahead of it. I didn't respond. I let the text sit there unread. Then I typed back, what do you want? Her response came almost immediately. Meet me at the coffee shop on Chestnut. Thursday 10. Fine. I put the phone down. I looked at the empty living room. I thought about my mother's letter. I thought about the fraud and the donors and the children who were supposed to be getting the money. I thought about Diana smiling through gritted teeth. I was going to meet her. I was going to hear what she had to say. And then I was going to decide what came next. But I knew one thing for sure. Whatever she offered, I wasn't going to take it. Not anymore. I was done taking things. I was done being the one who accepted the scraps. I was done letting them decide what I got to keep. The piano was coming back. The house was mine. The life was mine. I was done being the one who waited. The coffee shop on Chestnut was small and crowded, the kind of place where everyone knows your name if you go often enough. I didn't go often enough. Diana was already there when I arrived, sitting at a corner table with a cup of black coffee and a folder. She looked the same as she had at the gala, polished, composed, every hair in place. She was wearing a cream-colored sweater and gold earrings and the kind of smile that said she was in control. I sat down across from her. I didn't order anything. Thank you for coming, she said. You said you wanted to talk. I did. She pushed the folder across the table. I think you'll find this interesting. I opened it. It was a letter, typed and signed. A letter from Diana to the board of the Good Neighbor Foundation, tendering her resignation, effective immediately. I'm stepping down, she said. I'm leaving the foundation. I've already moved out of the office. Why? Because you won. You won the piano. You won the gala. You won the donors. I don't have a fight left in me. I looked at the letter. It was dated that morning. You're not doing this for me. I'm doing this for myself. I'm tired, Elena. I'm tired of fighting you. I'm tired of pretending this is what I wanted. What did you want? She looked at me. For a moment, her smile slipped. I saw something underneath it, tiredness, maybe. Regret. I couldn't tell. I wanted him, she said. I wanted William. I thought if I got him, everything else would fall into place. The charity, the money, the life I'd been working for. But I didn't get any of that. I just got the mess. You knew he was married. I knew. I didn't care. That's not something to be proud of. I'm not proud of it. I'm telling you the truth. Are you telling me you regret it? She didn't answer. She just looked at her coffee. William didn't know about the fraud. I said. The slip was bigger this time. She looked up, startled. What? The foundation's finances? The discrepancies. I know about them. Diana's face went pale. That's not what this is about. It's exactly what this is about. You know I found out. That's why you're resigning. You're trying to get ahead of it. I'm resigning because I want out. Out of what? Out of the whole thing. The charity. The gala. The game. I'm tired of pretending to be someone I'm not. I didn't say anything. I just watched her. I never wanted any of this, she said. I wanted a life. I wanted a family. I wanted someone who would love me. And William was there, and he made me feel like I was the only person in the room. That's not his fault. That's mine. You had an affair with a married man. Yes. You helped him sell my mother's piano. Yes. You looked up her obituary and used it against me. She winced. I'm sorry for that. That was wrong. Sorry isn't enough. I know. I closed the folder. I'm not going to let the fraud go. If you're stepping down, that's your choice. But the foundation still has to answer for what happened. I don't care anymore. Do what you want. I studied her face. She was telling the truth. She didn't care. She'd given up. And that was worse than fighting in a way. It meant she'd never really believed in any of it. The charity, the mission, the donors, it had all been a stage. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Because I want you to understand that I'm not your enemy. I was just someone who got caught up in something I didn't understand. You took my mother's piano. I know. And I can't fix that. But I can stop making it worse. She stood up. The foundation is yours. Do whatever you want with it. But I'm done. She walked out of the coffee shop. I watched her go. I sat there in the corner, in the warmth, in the smell of espresso and baked goods, and I thought about what she'd said. I'm not your enemy. She was wrong. She was exactly the enemy. But she wasn't the only one. The real enemy was the man who'd let it happen. The man who'd given her the keys. The man who'd stood by and watched her take my piano and hadn't said a word. I finished my coffee. I went home. I had a week before the piano came back. I had a month before Ray's final report. And I had a lifetime to figure out what I was going to do with it. I walked into my bedroom and opened the jewelry box. The letter from my mother was there. I took it out and held it. Take care of it. It will take care of you. I was taking care of it. I was taking care of everything. And I wasn't done yet. The piano came back on a Tuesday. I stood in the driveway and watched Frank and his guy unload it from the truck. It looked different. The cabinet was darker, richer, the wood grain visible through a deep mahogany finish. The brass hardware had been polished. The keys were new ivory substitute, clean and white. They rolled it into the living room and set it exactly where it had been, the casters fitting into the 4 indentations like they'd never left. Frank handed me the invoice. I paid him from the account. He handed me the bench. It had been reupholstered in dark blue velvet, the same fabric my mother had chosen decades ago. Everything's new except the soul, he said. That's still the same. Thank you, Frank. Play it. Let me know if anything feels off. I sat down. I opened the fallboard. I pressed a single key, middle C. The note hung in the air, clear and warm and true. I played a scale. I played a chord. I played the opening bars of The Nearness of You. The sound filled the room like it had been waiting for this moment, like the house had been holding its breath. Frank nodded. It's good. It's perfect. He left. I sat at the piano for an hour, playing everything I could remember. Chopin. Bach. My mother's old arrangements. I played until my fingers hurt and the light outside started to fade. Then I sat back and looked at the room. It was whole again. I was whole again. That evening, I got an email from William's lawyer. It was a formal offer, a proposed settlement. He'd give me the house. He'd give me alimony for 5 years. He'd give me half the value of the business. In exchange, I'd drop the divorce. I'd drop everything. I'd go back to being his wife. I forwarded the email to Marcus. He called me the next morning. This is good, he said. It's more than I expected. He's willing to give you a lot. He's willing to give me back what's already mine. Elena, you need to think about this. If you take this offer, you're done. You walk away clean. You don't have to fight. You don't have to pay for a forensic accountant. You just sign the papers and it's over. I don't want it. Elena. I don't want the alimony. I don't want half the business. I want him to know I don't need anything from him. He's going to fight you if you refuse. Let him. Marcus sighed. I'll draft a counter-proposal. But I want you to think about it overnight. I've already thought about it. Think about it again. I hung up. I walked to the piano and sat down. I thought about the beach wedding. I thought about the condo. I thought about the fraud. I thought about Diana sitting across from me in the coffee shop, saying she was done. I thought about William standing in the garage, asking me to let it end quietly. They wanted a clean exit. They wanted me to disappear. I wasn't going to disappear. That night, I called Claire. I told her about the settlement offer. I told her I was going to refuse it. Mom, that's a lot of money. I don't want the money. What do you want? I want him to lose. I want him to know that he can't just buy his way out of what he did. I want the foundation to be investigated. I want Diana's name to be in the papers for what she did. Mom, that's not a divorce. That's a crusade. Maybe, but it's my crusade. She didn't argue. She didn't try to talk me out of it. She just said, I'll be there for Thanksgiving. We'll talk then. I hung up. I sat at the piano and I played my mother's song. I played it from memory. I played it the way I'd played it at the Gala, the way my mother had played it for my father. I played it until the notes blurred together, and I didn't know where one ended and the next began. The next morning, I called Ray. I told him to proceed. I told him to find the forensic accountant. I told him to dig deeper. I told him to find out if William knew about the fraud. You're sure about this? He asked. Positive. Okay. I'll have an estimate for you by Friday. Do it. I spent the next week in a kind of suspended animation. I taught my students. I practiced. I went to the grocery store. I walked through the house, and I looked at the rooms and I thought about how different they were. I'd lived here for 27 years. I'd raised 2 daughters. I'd cooked thousands of meals. I'd made a home. And now I was the only one left in it. It was the first time I'd ever been alone in a house that big. I didn't mind it. There was something peaceful about the silence, the way the light fell across the floor, the way I could hear the wind in the trees. I'd spent so many years being part of a couple that I'd forgotten what it felt like to just be one person. Thanksgiving came. Emily flew in on Wednesday night. I picked her up at the airport and she hugged me and held on for a long time. She was 23, the same age I'd been when I had her, and she looked so much like me I sometimes had to catch my breath. Mom, you look amazing. I feel amazing. Really, really. We drove home. We sat in the kitchen and drank wine and talked about everything. She asked about the divorce, the foundation, the piano. I told her everything. I told her about my mother's letter. She cried. I didn't. Mom, I'm proud of you. Thank you. I mean it. I know that's not something you always want to hear, but I am. Sweetie, that's the first time you've said that in years. I know. I should have said it more. Don't worry. You're saying it now. The next day, Claire came home. She drove from Chicago with her boyfriend, a tall kid named Matt who worked in tech and had the kind of quiet manners that reminded me of my father. I made dinner. We sat around the table and ate and talked. It was the first time we'd all been together since the gala. It was the first time it felt like a family dinner. After dinner, we sat in the living room. Claire asked about the piano. I played for them. I played my mother's song. When I was done, Claire asked, Mom, are you really okay? Yes. Because Dad called me. He said you're trying to destroy him. I'm not trying to destroy him. I'm trying to protect myself. There's a difference. Dad says there isn't. Dad says a lot of things. He says you're going after the foundation. He says you're going to ruin Diana. I'm going after the foundation because it's committing fraud. That's not personal. That's just the truth. Mom, he's scared. Good. Mom. Claire, I'm not doing this to hurt anyone. I'm doing this because it's the right thing to do. The foundation has been stealing from donors. They've been lying to the IRS. Diana took my piano. She sold it. She made me pay to get it back. And your father stood by and watched it happen. He let her do it. Claire was quiet. She looked at Emily. Emily looked at me. Mom, we're not saying you're wrong. We're just saying be careful. I'm being careful. We know you are. The conversation didn't go any further. I knew they were worried. I knew they thought I was going too far. But I also knew they'd never understand what it felt like to have your life taken apart piece by piece. They'd never understand what it felt like to sit on a bench and hold your mother's letter and realize that you'd been invisible for most of your adult life. I was done being invisible. The forensic accountant's name was Linda. She came highly recommended by Marcus. She was in her 50s, sharp-eyed, with the kind of quiet competence that made me trust her immediately. She and Ray worked together for 3 weeks. They combed through the foundation's finances. They traced the money. They found the shell companies, the fake invoices, the missing donor funds. On December 15th, Linda called me with the report. Elena, we have enough to go to the IRS. We have enough to go to the Attorney General. This is a clear case of fraud. She's been doing this for 4 years. How much are we talking about? About $120,000. Maybe more. The records are messy. Is William named? He's not directly implicated. But he was on the board. He signed some of the documents. He may not have known, but he should have. Can you prove it? Proof is hard. But we have enough to make it very uncomfortable for him. I thanked her and hung up. I sat at the piano and I thought about what to do. I could go to the IRS. I could go to the Attorney General. I could send the report to the board of directors and watch the foundation implode. I could do all of it. Or I could use it. I called Marcus. I told him about the report. I asked him what my options were. Option 1, he said, you file a complaint with the IRS. They'll investigate. They'll probably levy fines. If there's enough evidence, they might even press charges. Option 2, you take the report to William. You use it as leverage. You tell him you'll drop it if he gives you everything you want in the divorce. Everything. The house. The alimony. A full share of the business. A public statement from him saying that you were the wronged party. Whatever you want. Option 2 sounds like blackmail. Lawyers don't call it blackmail. They call it negotiation. I laughed. Marcus, you're a piece of work. I've been told that. What do you want to do? I thought about it. I thought about Diana in the coffee shop, saying she was done. I thought about William in the garage, pale and tired, asking me to let it end. I thought about the beach wedding and the photo and the smiley face emoji. I thought about my mother's letter. I want to go public, I said. The fraud, the foundation, everything. Elena, that's option 3. Is option 3 bad? It's not bad. It's just thorough. Good. That's what I want. He paused. You're sure about this? Positive. Okay. I'll get the paperwork together. I hung up. I walked to the piano and I played a chord, one massive chord, and held it until the sound faded into the walls. I thought about what was going to happen. The press. The investigation. The fall. I thought about William's face when he found out. I thought about Diana's face when the reporters came. I didn't feel sorry for them. I felt nothing. That night, I called Claire and Emily. I told them what I was doing. I told them I was going to blow the whole thing open. They were quiet. They didn't say I was wrong. They didn't say I was right. They just listened. Mom, Emily said, are you doing this because you're angry? I'm doing this because it's the truth. Are you doing this because you want to hurt Dad? I'm doing this because I want him to know what he did. Mom, that's the same thing. No, it's different. Wanting to hurt someone is revenge. Telling the truth is justice. Are you sure? I'm sure. I hung up. I sat in the living room and looked at the piano. The room was quiet. The house was quiet. Everything was quiet. I walked over to the jewelry box. I opened it. The photo was still there, along with the receipt, the letter, the emails, the reports. I looked at the collection and I thought about what it meant. It meant I had everything I needed. It meant I could walk away. It meant I could fight. It meant I could do anything. I closed the box. I put it back on the dresser. Tomorrow, I would call Marcus. Tomorrow, I would start the process. Tomorrow, I would change everything. But tonight, I was going to play my mother's song. I was going to play it until I fell asleep. I was going to listen to the music and feel it in my chest and remember who I was before I let William make me forget. I sat down at the piano. I put my fingers on the keys. I played. I played like I meant it. I played like my mother was sitting beside me. I played like I was saving myself. And I knew, as the final chord hung in the air, that I was going to be okay. Not just okay. I was going to be more than okay. I was going to be free. The rest was just details. The first call came at 7 in the morning. Local news. They'd seen the complaint I filed with the Attorney General. They wanted a comment. I gave them one. The Good Neighbor Foundation has been defrauding donors for years. I have the documents to prove it. I'm happy to share them with anyone who wants to see. The second call came at 8. The Philadelphia Inquirer. The reporter's name was Jessica Webb. She'd written the original article about the Gala. She said she'd been following the story. She asked if I would sit for an interview. I said yes. She came to my house at 10. She was young, maybe 30, with the kind of intense focus that made me think she'd been a journalism major and never looked back. We sat in the living room. She looked at the piano. That's the one, that's the one. Can I ask you to play it for the story? I played the opening bars of The Nearness of You. Jessica wrote something in her notebook. Then we talked. I told her everything. The affair. The beach wedding. The piano. The fraud. I showed her the documents. I showed her the reports. I told her about Diana's resignation and the shell companies and the fake invoices. Are you afraid of retaliation? She asked. No. Why not? Because I've already lost everything that mattered to me. There's nothing left to take. She wrote that down. She asked more questions. I answered all of them. When she left, she shook my hand and said, "This is going to be a big story." Good. It was. The article ran 3 days later on the front page of the Sunday edition. Charity fraud exposed. Good Neighbor Foundation under investigation. The headline was big and bold. My name was in it. The piano was in it. William was in it. Diana was in it. The whole thing was laid out in black and white. I read it at the kitchen table. I read it twice. The first time, I felt a surge of something I couldn't name. The second time, I felt calm. It was done. The truth was out. My phone started ringing before I'd finished my coffee. William called 4 times. I let all of them go to voicemail. He left messages. The first one was angry. The second one was pleading. The third one was silent, just breathing, then a click. The fourth one was sad. Elena, I don't know what you think you're doing. But this isn't going to end the way you think. I'm going to call the lawyer. I'm going to fight you on everything. You can't do this to me. You can't just. I deleted the fourth one before it finished. Diana didn't call. She didn't text. She didn't email. She'd gone dark. I didn't blame her. I probably would have done the same. The article spread. The local news picked it up. Then the national news. Then the online outlets. By Tuesday, the Good Neighbor Foundation was a trending topic on every social media platform. Donors were calling for refunds. Board members were resigning. The Attorney General was promising a full investigation. I watched it all from my living room. I sat at the piano and I watched the TV and I listened to the reports. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel vindicated. I just felt like I'd done what I was supposed to do. Wednesday morning, I got a letter. It was from Diana. Handwritten on nice stationery. I opened it at the kitchen table. Elena, I'm writing to tell you that I'm sorry. Not because you've won, but because I should have been better. I should have been better to you. I should have been better to myself. I got caught up in something I thought I wanted, and I hurt you in the process. There's no excuse for that. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm just saying I'm sorry. I'm leaving Philadelphia. I'm moving back to where I came from. I'm going to try to rebuild something that doesn't involve hurting anyone else. I hope you find peace. You deserve it. Diana. I read the letter twice. The first time, I felt nothing. The second time, I felt a flicker of something I didn't expect. Not forgiveness. Just recognition. She was broken. She'd broken herself. And she was leaving. I put the letter in the jewelry box. It joined the rest. That night, Marcus called. Elena, the Attorney General's office is moving fast. They're issuing subpoenas. They want to talk to you. I'll talk. Good. And there's something else. William's lawyer reached out. They want to settle. Tell them I'm not interested. Elena, I'm not interested in a settlement. I'm interested in the investigation. If William wants to talk to me, he can talk to me directly. That's not how this works. It is now. Marcus was quiet. Fine. I'll tell them. I hung up. I walked to the piano. I played a few notes. I didn't know what I was doing anymore. I didn't know if I was fighting or just refusing to stop fighting. But I knew I wasn't done. The next day, William showed up at my house. He didn't call first. He didn't text. He just knocked on the door at 8 in the morning. I opened it. He was standing on the porch, wearing a raincoat, shivering in the cold. His face was pale, and he looked like he hadn't slept. Can I come in? He asked. No. Elena, I need to talk to you. Say what you need to say. He looked at me. He looked at the door frame. He looked at the ground. I didn't know about the fraud. You signed the documents. I signed what they put in front of me. I didn't read them. That's not a defense. I know. I'm not trying to defend myself. I'm just telling you the truth. Why are you here, William? Because I need to know if there's anything left between us. Anything I can save. I looked at him. He was the same man I'd married. The same face, the same hands, the same voice. But he was different now. Smaller. Diminished. I could see it in the way he held himself, the way his shoulders were hunched against the cold. There's nothing left, I said. There has to be. There isn't. You killed it. You killed it when you gave her the keys. You killed it when you let her take the piano. You killed it when you went to that beach and pretended you weren't married. Elena, I was lost. I was confused. You were selfish. I know. Then why are you here? Because I want to fix it. I want to fix everything. I'll do whatever it takes. Whatever it takes, yes. Then leave. Go away. Don't come back. Let me have this life without you in it. He stared at me. Is that really what you want? Yes. Elena, William, I'm done. I'm done explaining. I'm done fighting. I'm done trying to make you understand. You don't understand. You've never understood. You look at me and you see the woman who made your life easier. You don't see me. You've never seen me. I see you now. No. You see the consequences of your actions. You see what you're about to lose. That's not the same thing. He didn't say anything. He just stood there. I closed the door. I locked it. I walked back to the piano and sat down and put my hands on the keys. I didn't play. I just sat there. He knocked once more. I didn't answer. He walked away. I heard his car start, heard it drive away, heard the sound of it fading into the street. I sat at the piano until my hands went cold. Then I got up and made a cup of tea and waited for the next thing to happen. 2 weeks later, the Attorney General held a press conference. They announced the investigation. They said they'd found evidence of fraud. They said charges were pending. They didn't name Diana, but they didn't have to. Everyone knew. I watched it on TV. I watched it from my living room. I watched it with the piano behind me, silent and beautiful and mine. That afternoon, I got a call from Jessica Webb. She said she was writing a follow-up. She asked if I was willing to be quoted. I said yes. Are you satisfied with the outcome? She asked. I don't know if satisfied is the right word. I'm not happy about any of this. I didn't want to destroy anyone. I just wanted the truth to come out. And now it has. And now it has. Are you worried about what comes next? No. I'm not worried. I'm ready. The article ran the next day. It said that the Good Neighbor Foundation was being dissolved. It said that Diana had been banned from running any charity in the state. It said that William had stepped down from the board and was cooperating with investigators. I read it. I didn't feel anything. I was done feeling things about him. Emily came home for Christmas. Claire came too, without Matt. We spent Christmas Eve at the house. We made dinner. We exchanged gifts. I gave Emily a pendant that had been my mother's. I gave Claire a set of crystal wine glasses that had never been used. After dinner, Claire asked me to play the piano. I played my mother's song. I played it the way I'd always played it. When I was done, Claire said, "Mom, you played that differently. How it sounded like it was yours." I looked at my hands. It is mine. Christmas morning, I woke up early. The house was quiet. The sun was coming up over the trees. I walked into the living room and sat at the piano and played a simple hymn, the kind my mother used to play on Sunday mornings. The notes hung in the air like a blessing. I was okay. I was more than okay. The new year came. The investigation dragged on. William's lawyer called Marcus and offered a settlement again. This time I accepted. I didn't take everything. I didn't want everything. I took the house. I took a small alimony payment. I took the piano and the jewelry box and the letter and the receipt and everything else that mattered. I gave up the business. I gave up the alimony they'd offered. I gave up the fight. Not because I was tired. Because I was done. I signed the papers in mid-January. Marcus sent them to William's lawyer. A week later, the divorce was final. I was Elena Hayes again. Just Elena. No one's wife. No one's support system. No one's safety net. I sat in the living room and looked at the piano. I thought about what my mother had written. Take care of it. It will take care of you. I played a chord. I felt it resonate through the floorboards, through the walls, through the house. It was my house. It was my piano. It was my life. I wasn't going to let anyone take it from me again. That evening, I got a call from William. I let it go to voicemail. He left a message. Elena, I know I'm the last person you want to hear from. But I just wanted to say I'm sorry. I've thought a lot about what you said. About me not seeing you. And you were right. I didn't see you. I saw the person who made my life work. I didn't see the person you were. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry I never asked you what you wanted. I'm sorry I never listened. I'm sorry I gave away the piano. I know that's not enough. I know nothing I say can fix it. But I wanted you to hear it. That's all. I'll leave you alone now. I promise. I sat in the kitchen and listened to the message twice. The first time, I felt nothing. The second time, I felt something I didn't expect. Not forgiveness. Not anger. Just the quiet weight of a door closing. I deleted the message. I poured myself a glass of wine. I walked to the piano and I sat down and I played my mother's song one more time. I played it for myself. For my mother. For the years I'd spent being invisible. For the years I'd lost. For the years I was going to get back. When I was done, I put my hands on my knees and I looked at the room. The room was quiet. The room was mine. The room was full of music. I was ready for whatever came next. Spring came slowly that year. The snow melted in February, but the cold hung on through March, the kind of damp chill that gets into your bones and stays there. I didn't mind it. I spent the winter inside, teaching, practicing, getting used to the silence. The house felt smaller now that it was just me. Not in a bad way. In a way that made it easier to keep clean, easier to keep warm, easier to know where everything was. I started teaching again in the living room. Annie Chin came back. She sat at the piano and played her Bach minuet, and I told her she'd improved. She smiled. She looked at the piano with the same kind of awe she'd had before, like it was something sacred. Maybe it was. I stopped thinking about William. Not deliberately. It just happened. One day I realized I hadn't thought about him in a week. Then a month. Then 2 months. He'd stopped calling. He'd stopped texting. He'd stopped leaving voicemails. He was gone, and I was glad. I started thinking about other things. I started thinking about what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. I was 52. I had decades left. I'd spent so long being someone else's someone that I'd never figured out who I was on my own. The piano helped. I played every day. Not just scales and exercises, but real music, the kind that comes from somewhere deep. I played Chopin's nocturnes. I played Debussy's preludes. I played the old standards my mother had loved. I played until my fingers ached and the notes blurred together, and I felt like I was floating. I started going to concerts again. I went alone. I sat in the back row and listened to the orchestra and watched the conductor's hands and remembered what it felt like to be part of something larger than myself. I hadn't performed in public since my 30s, when I'd been a violinist in a regional orchestra. I'd given it up when Claire was born. I'd told myself it was temporary. It wasn't. But now I was thinking about it again. I was thinking about picking up my violin, the one that sat in its case under the bed, and playing it. I was thinking about finding a community ensemble, a church group, a quartet. I was thinking about all the things I'd given up because I'd thought they didn't matter. They mattered. They'd always mattered. I'd just forgotten. In April, I got a letter from the Attorney General's office. The investigation was wrapping up. They were filing charges against Diana. They were also filing charges against the Foundation's board of directors for negligence. William wasn't on the list. He cooperated too quickly. He'd turned over documents. He'd given them everything they needed. I read the letter and I felt something I hadn't expected. I felt relieved. Not because William was off the hook, but because it was over. The fight was done. The investigation was done. The divorce was done. Everything was done. I put the letter in the jewelry box. The box was full. I had to push things down to make room. That Saturday, I went to a used bookstore in the city. I was browsing the shelves, looking for sheet music, when I heard someone say my name. I turned. It was a woman I didn't recognize, maybe 60, with gray hair and kind eyes. She was holding a book. Elena Hayes. Yes, I'm Laura. Laura Williams. I was at the gala. I'm the one who bought your piano. I stared at her. I hadn't seen her since that night. She was wearing a simple cardigan and comfortable shoes, the kind of woman who looked like she'd just finished a hike or a yoga class or something else that had nothing to do with charity galas. I'm sorry, I said. I didn't recognize you. Of course you didn't. We only met that one time. She smiled. I've been meaning to call you. I wanted to see how you're doing. I'm good. I'm really good. I'm glad. I've thought about that night a lot. The way you played. The way you told your story. It stayed with me. That was very generous of you. What you did. I never thanked you properly. You don't have to thank me. I didn't do it for you. I did it because it was the right thing to do. Still, I'm grateful. She nodded. How's the piano? It's beautiful. I had it restored. It sounds better than it ever did. That's wonderful. I'd love to hear it sometime. Anytime. You're welcome to come over. She smiled. I might take you up on that. She walked away. I stood in the bookstore and watched her go. I didn't know her. I'd never see her again. But she'd been part of the story, the part that had turned everything around. She'd given me back my piano. She'd given me back my life. I bought a book of Chopin etudes and went home. That night, I sat at the piano and I played the etudes. They were hard. My fingers stumbled over the runs and I had to stop and start again. But I didn't get frustrated. I just kept playing. I'd spent years being afraid of difficulty, afraid of failing, afraid of not being good enough. I wasn't afraid anymore. I was just playing. I thought about Laura. I thought about the way she'd said, I didn't do it for you. She'd meant it. She'd done it because it was right. It wasn't about me. It was about her. She'd seen something wrong and she'd fixed it. I wanted to be like that. I wanted to be someone who saw wrong things and fixed them. Not because I had to. Because I could. Claire called me the next week. She'd gotten a job offer in Boston, a law firm that specialized in family law. She said she was thinking about taking it. She said she wanted to be closer to Emily. She said she wanted to be closer to me. That's wonderful, I said. You think I should do it? I think you should do whatever makes you happy. I don't know what makes me happy. You'll figure it out. You've got time. She laughed. Mom, you sound like me. Maybe you sound like me. Maybe I do. We talked for an hour. She told me about the firm, the city, the apartment she'd found. I told her about the bookstore, the Chopin, the way the house felt now that it was mine. It was a good conversation. The kind you have when there's no distance between you. Emily called the next day. She'd been seeing someone, a teacher named Marcus, not to be confused with my lawyer. She said he was kind. She said he made her laugh. She said she thought I'd like him. To bring him to dinner, I said. Really. I'm not afraid of meeting people anymore. She laughed. Okay, Mom. I will. I hung up. I looked at the piano. I thought about the three of us, me, Claire, Emily, sitting around the kitchen table, eating and talking and laughing. I thought about how long it had been since we'd done that. I thought about how long it would be before we did it again. I didn't mind the waiting. I had time. In May, I started looking at music schools. Not for me, not for a degree, but for something else. I wanted to teach more. I wanted to reach more students. I wanted to share what I knew with people who hadn't had the chance to learn. I found a community center in the city that ran a free music program for kids. I called them. I asked if they needed volunteers. They did. I started going every Tuesday. I worked with a group of 8 kids, ages 7 to 12. Some of them had never touched an instrument. Some of them had. All of them wanted to learn. It was the best thing I'd done in years. I taught them the basics. Scales. Finger placement. Simple melodies. They struggled. They got frustrated. They made mistakes. But they kept coming back. They kept trying. One girl, a 9-year-old named Maria, had a voice that could break your heart. I'd never heard a child sing like that. I asked her where she'd learned. I just open my mouth, she said. The music comes out. I told her I understood. I told her I felt the same way about the piano. Can you teach me? She asked. Teach you how to play like you. Maria, I'm still learning to play like me. But I can teach you to play like you. She nodded. She sat down at the piano. She played a scale. She played it wrong. I corrected her. She tried again. She got it right. I smiled. She smiled. And I realized, right there in that small room with the out-of-tune upright piano and the cracked linoleum floor, that I was doing exactly what I was supposed to be doing. I thought about my mother. I thought about the letter she'd hidden in the piano. Take care of it. It will take care of you. I'd taken care of the piano. I'd taken care of myself. And now I was taking care of others. It felt good. It felt right. It felt like coming home. That Saturday, I got a call from Marcus. Not the lawyer, my daughter's Marcus. He said he and Emily were coming to dinner the next weekend. He said he was nervous. I told him not to be. I hear you're a tough audience, he said. Who told you that, Emily? She's lying. I'm a very generous audience. I'll take your word for it. He hung up. I laughed. I hadn't laughed like that in a long time. I spent the next week preparing. I cleaned the house. I bought groceries. I set the table with the good china, the one I'd never used, because it was too fancy for every day. I polished the silverware. I made a roast chicken and a salad and a chocolate cake that I didn't burn. They came on Sunday. Emily looked happy. Marcus was tall and friendly, with glasses and a shy smile. He shook my hand and said, "It's an honor to meet you." "It's just dinner," I said. Emily talks about you all the time. I feel like I know you. You know her version of me? The version that makes me look good. That's the only version I need. We sat down. We ate. We talked. Marcus asked about the piano. I played for them. Emily cried. I didn't. After dinner, Marcus helped me with the dishes. He asked about the divorce. I told him the truth. That must have been hard, he said. It was. But it was also necessary. Do you miss him? No. I miss who I thought he was. But that person never really existed. Marcus nodded. Emily said you were brave. I think she's right. She's biased. She's not biased. She's your daughter. I smiled. I didn't say anything else. I didn't have to. They left at 9. I stood on the porch and watched them drive away. Emily waved. Marcus honked the horn. I waved back. I walked back inside. The house was quiet. The piano was waiting. I sat down and played a soft, slow piece. Something by Satie. Something that didn't demand anything. It was simple and sad and beautiful, and I played it until my eyes closed and my fingers slowed and I fell asleep on the bench. I woke up at midnight. The house was cold. The moon was out. I stood up and stretched and walked to the bedroom. I thought about Maria. I thought about Emily. I thought about Claire. I thought about my mother. I thought about the woman I was becoming. I thought about the fact that I was still becoming. That I hadn't stopped. That I might never stop. That was the best part. I was still growing. Still learning. Still playing. Still me. I climbed into bed. I closed my eyes. I slept. I dreamed of music. I dreamed of my mother. I dreamed of a woman in a blue dress, a woman I'd never met, who bought a piano and gave it back for free. I dreamed of the song. The song from my parents' wedding. The song I'd played at the gala. I dreamed of playing it again. I dreamed of playing it forever. The summer came, and I spent it in the garden. I pulled weeds and planted flowers and watched the tomatoes ripen on the vine. I'd never been a gardener before. I'd always been too busy with other things, with other people's schedules, with the endless work of keeping a household running. But now I had time. I had nothing but time. I dug my hands into the dirt and felt the coolness of it, the weight, the life. I planted marigolds along the fence and roses near the porch and lavender in a patch by the kitchen window. I watered them every morning. I talked to them. I told them they were beautiful. I told them they were going to make it. They did. By July, the garden was a riot of color. The neighbors walked by and complimented it. I stood on the porch and watched them stop and look and smile. It wasn't much. It was just flowers. But it was mine. I started teaching more. The community center asked me to come twice a week. I said yes. I started working with a group of older students, teenagers who'd been playing for years and wanted to get better. I pushed them harder than I'd ever pushed anyone. They responded. They got better. They got so much better that I started thinking about a recital. I called Claire and Emily and asked what they thought. Claire said do it. Emily said she'd fly in to watch. I didn't expect that. I didn't expect anyone to come. But Emily said she wouldn't miss it. I started planning. I picked a date in September. I picked a venue, a small church near the center that had a piano and good acoustics. I reached out to my students and asked if they wanted to perform. They all said yes. I spent August preparing. I practiced every day. I picked pieces for myself, things I'd never performed publicly, things I'd always been afraid to play. Chopin's Ballade No. 1. Debussy's Clair de Lune. My mother's song. I didn't tell anyone about that last one. I kept it to myself. A secret. The recital was on a Friday night. The church was full. Not packed, but full enough. Claire was there. Emily was there. Marcus was there, sitting with Emily in the second row. My students were there, nervous and excited and wearing clothes that looked like they'd been chosen by their mothers. I opened with Clair de Lune. I played it slowly, carefully, the way I'd always played it. The notes rose and fell like water. When I finished, the room was quiet. Then someone applauded. Then everyone applauded. I introduced my students. One by one, they came to the piano and played. Some of them made mistakes. Some of them stumbled. Some of them forgot their music and had to start over. But they kept going. They finished. They bowed. Maria played a simple piece she'd written herself. It was short and imperfect and beautiful. I watched her play and I remembered what she'd said. The music comes out. It did. It came out of her like it had been waiting her whole life. When the students were done, I sat down at the piano. I looked at the audience. I saw Claire and Emily. I saw Marcus. I saw the parents of my students. I saw people I didn't know, people who'd come because they'd heard about the program, people who'd come because they believed in music. I'm going to play something, I said. Something I've been saving. I played my mother's song, The Nearness of You. I played it the way I'd played it at the gala. But this time, I was different. This time, I wasn't fighting. I wasn't proving anything. I was just playing. The notes filled the church. They rose up to the ceiling and fell down on the congregation like rain. I closed my eyes and I saw my mother. I saw her sitting at the piano in the living room of our old house. I saw her hands on the keys. I saw her smile. I finished. The last chord hung in the air. Then the applause came, not sudden but swelling, like a wave that had been building for years. I stood up and bowed. Emily was crying. Claire was clapping. Marcus was smiling. I walked off the stage. I walked through the crowd of students and parents and strangers. I walked to the back of the church, and I opened the door and I stepped outside. The air was cool and the sky was dark and the stars were out. I stood on the steps and I breathed. Claire came out a few minutes later. Mom. Are you okay? I'm fine. I'm more than fine. That was beautiful. Thank you. Are you coming back inside? They want to talk to you. I'll be there in a minute. She nodded. She went back inside. I stood on the steps and looked at the sky and thought about everything that had happened. The piano. The gala. The divorce. The foundation. The investigation. The fights. The losses. The wins. It had been a long year. It had been a hard year. But I was still standing. I was still playing. I was still alive. I went back inside. I talked to the parents and the students and the strangers. I posed for pictures. I shook hands. I thanked everyone for coming. When it was over, I drove home alone. Emily and Marcus had gone to a hotel. Claire had gone back to Boston. I was alone in the car, driving through the quiet streets of my neighborhood. I pulled into the driveway. I walked into the house. The piano was in the living room, waiting. I didn't play it. I didn't have to. I just stood there and looked at it and felt its presence like a friend, like a mother, like a part of myself I'd almost lost. I went to bed. I slept. I dreamed of music. The next morning, I got a call from Marcus, my lawyer. He said the IRS had filed charges against Diana. He said she was likely to face jail time. He said William had testified against her in exchange for immunity. I didn't want that, I said. I know. But it happened. What about William? He's out. He's paying fines. He's lost his seat on every board he was on. He's basically a pariah. I didn't want that either. I know you didn't. But it's what happened. I hung up. I sat at the kitchen table and looked out the window. The garden was in full bloom. The roses were red and the marigolds were orange and the lavender was purple. It was beautiful. I thought about William. I thought about Diana. I thought about the beach wedding and the condo and the charity and the fraud. I thought about all of it. I didn't feel sorry for them. I didn't feel vindicated. I just felt like it was over. It was finally, completely, undeniably over. I got up. I walked to the living room. I sat down at the piano. I didn't play. I just sat there. I looked at the keys. I looked at the wood. I looked at the music stand, empty now, waiting for the next piece. I thought about my mother's letter. To the woman who plays this piano after me. That woman was me. It had always been me. I thought about the gala. I thought about the donors and the audience and the way they'd listened. I thought about the woman in the blue dress, Laura, who'd bought the piano and given it back for free. I thought about my daughters. I thought about my students. I thought about Maria and her imperfect piece and the way she'd looked at me when she finished, like she'd just discovered something about herself. I thought about the future. I didn't know what it held. I didn't know if I'd ever fall in love again. I didn't know if I'd ever be part of a couple again. I didn't know if I'd ever have a partner, a companion, someone to grow old with. I didn't know if I wanted those things. I only knew that I was okay without them. I was okay on my own. I looked at my hands. They were 52 years old. They'd played thousands of pieces, millions of notes. They'd held my children. They'd held my mother's hand when she was dying. They'd held the letter she'd written and hidden in the piano. They were my hands. They'd always been my hands. I just hadn't known it. I played a chord. Just one. A C major chord, simple and open and full of possibility. I held it until it faded into the silence. Then I took my hands off the keys and set them on my knees and sat in the quiet. The house was quiet. The garden was quiet. The world was quiet. I was quiet too. But not empty. Not sad. Not lost. Just present. Just here. I thought about William one last time. I thought about him standing on the porch in the rain, asking if there was anything left to save. I thought about the way he'd looked at me, like I was a stranger. He'd said, "I see you now." But he didn't. He'd never seen me. He'd seen his own failure. He'd seen his own loss. He'd seen the consequences of his actions. He'd never seen me. But I saw myself. That was enough. I stood up. I walked to the kitchen. I made a cup of tea. I sat at the table and looked out the window at the garden. The sun was rising. The flowers were opening. The day was new. I took a sip of tea. It was hot and good. I thought about the recital. I thought about the applause. I thought about Emily crying and Claire clapping and Marcus smiling. I thought about Maria. I thought about the letter. I thought about my mother. I thought about the song. My song. Her song. Our song. I didn't play it. I didn't need to. It was in me. It had always been in me. It would always be in me. I finished my tea. I washed the cup. I put it in the drying rack. I walked to the living room. I stood at the piano. I put my hands on the fallboard. I didn't open it. I just stood there, letting the wood warm under my palms. I thought about everything I'd been through. I thought about the woman I'd been and the woman I was becoming. I thought about what my mother would say if she could see me now. I think she'd say, "Take care of it. It will take care of you." She was right. It had. I lifted my hands from the fallboard. I turned away from the piano. I walked to the kitchen and picked up my keys. I had a student coming at 9. A new one. A boy named Samuel, 8 years old, who'd never played before. I was going to teach him. I was going to show him the scales and the finger placements and the simple melodies. I was going to watch him struggle and get frustrated and make mistakes. And then I was going to watch him try again. Because that's what music teaches you. That's what it's always taught me. You don't stop. You keep playing. You keep trying. You keep going. Even when it's hard. Even when you want to give up. Even when you've lost everything. You keep going. I opened the door. I stepped outside. The air was warm and the sun was up and the day was waiting. I closed the door behind me. I didn't look back. The piano was in the living room, silent and patient and mine. But I didn't need it right now. I didn't need anything right now. I just needed to walk. To breathe. To live. I walked down the driveway. I walked to the end of the street. I walked until I couldn't see the house anymore. And I kept walking. The boy was waiting. His mother was waiting. The piano at the community center was waiting. I walked toward them. I walked toward everything. I didn't know what was coming next. I didn't know if it would be good or hard or something in between. I didn't know if I'd ever fall in love again. I didn't know if I'd ever be part of a couple again. I didn't know if I'd ever have a partner, a companion, someone to grow old with. I didn't know if I wanted those things. I only knew that I was okay without them. I was okay on my own. I walked into the community center at 8:59. Samuel was already there, sitting on a bench outside the music room. He was holding a sheet of paper with a drawing of a piano on it. He'd colored the keys black and white and drawn little music notes floating above them. "Are you the teacher?" he asked. "I'm the teacher." "Can I learn to play this song?" He held up the paper. It wasn't a real song. It was a scribble of notes and lines, something he'd made up. "Let me see it," I said. He handed me the paper. I looked at it. It was nonsense musically. But it was also something else. It was a beginning. It was a child reaching out and saying, "I want to make music." "We can learn to play anything," I said. "Let's start with something simpler. Then we'll get to this." Okay. We walked into the music room. The piano was there, an old upright with chipped keys and a cracked lid. It wasn't beautiful. But it worked. I sat down. He sat down next to me. "Put your hands here," I said. "Like this." He did. He pressed a key. The note came out, flat and imperfect. Again. I said. He pressed it again. It was better. Again. He pressed it again. It was almost right. Good, I said. Now, let's try the next one. He pressed the next key. It was also flat, also imperfect. But he kept going. I watched him. I watched his face, his concentration, his determination. I thought about my mother. I thought about her hands on the keys. I thought about the letters she'd hidden in the piano. I thought about the woman I'd been. I thought about the woman I was becoming. Keep going, I said. You're doing great. He kept going. The music filled the room. It was simple and small and imperfect. It was enough. It was always enough.